I'd like to call the Board of Finance meeting for Thursday, February 16th, 2017 to order. Today we're going to be conducting our regular Board of Finance monthly meeting in addition to receiving presentations from the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education on the 2017-2018 budget. With that, I'd like to open it up to public forum. Anyone wishing to make a comment on anything on the agenda, which obviously includes now the proposed budgets from the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education. Hearing none, let's move on to item 2. Item 2 would be approve the regular meeting minutes of January 17th, 2017. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions, changes, etc.? I had one on page 3, and that is about halfway down. Ms. Trudeau explained that they have raised prices and have been trying to control. I know it's good. It is a good thing, but I think it should be been trying to control. And then a couple of paragraphs up, Linda and I may have missed this, and you probably are going to be presenting it to us, a projection for special ed. You are going to have that?
Yes.
Wonderful. That's all I had. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on basically 2.1. It says, Mr. Golitz said that regarding the pension discussion under item 3.2, he followed up with Joe Bavona on this. I did not follow up with Joe Bavona. I think you mentioned that you followed up with him, Ken?
No, I followed up with Ray Bauer.
Ray Bauer. Okay, I never had a discussion with Joe Bavona. I just expressed my view that generally a strategic allocation is 50-50, but that was basically a professional assessment as opposed to speaking with Joe Bavona. So Joe Bavona should be scratched.
Okay. I believe it was Bavona's quote that we were talking about,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Right, exactly.
All right, so if we just strike, he followed up with Joe Bavona on this, would that be sufficient?
Right, because
You didn't?
I didn't.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Page 2, 3.1, second paragraph. It says, Mr. McKenzie said solar was not considered when the new Guilford High School went in. He questioned why they would pay someone to evaluate, and it should be an outcome that was not previously recommended. I did not state that solar was not considered. I asked the question, I thought I had asked the question if solar was considered when the new high school went in, and then I went on because I still, to this day, don't understand why we would pay somebody if we decide to put solar in a percentage of the anticipated savings. I think that's something we should have anticipated from the get-go. So I know the performance contracting is here, and we had some discussion about it, but I did not say what this says I said. So,
What would you prefer to read?
Mr. McKenzie asked if solar was considered when the new Guilford High School went in. He questioned why we would pay someone such as performance contracting, which the prior paragraph talks about, to evaluate solar, why we would pay them a percentage of cost savings for something that we really, is fairly obvious and we should have done, in my opinion, from the get-go.
Okay with that?
So
Tracy,
something to that
you got
effect.
it? Okay. Anyone else? None others? Call the question for the minutes as amended. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
I'll abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
There you go. That's a good reason. Item 3.1, Pension Committee minutes. Any comments, questions, etc.? I had
There
none.
really wasn't much meat in these.
No, it's just the decision on
Yeah.
payouts on retirements, right? Hearing nothing, let's move on to item 4. Wait a second. Normally we have standing building,
Building committee.
but they were not available, which is why.
Their meeting was last week, so
Okay.
it's a little bit tight time frame this time around.
All right. For those electronically, when we get those minutes in, please. Thank you.
Actually, Matt, if we could circle back to the pension minutes for
Oh,
just a second.
certainly we can.
There was, on item 6, pension reports, there's a discussion, I just couldn't quite follow it. Tom, I guess again, Tom Pavona, distributed a response regarding a previous request for a secondary benchmark in the quarterly reports, and it says the result being the Wells Fargo program cannot support this request. They just couldn't really make heads or tails out of that. I have a big huh over here. So I'm thinking that just means that some sort of, I'm looking at Peter maybe, some sort of informational report that the town had expected or was hoping to get, and I don't know what that means. Do we have, is there any way to find out?
Where is
am I
this now?
looking?
Page
Item
4,
six.
Item 6, 6-1.
Second paragraph.
I mean, Wells Fargo, we're dealing with Wells Fargo, they can't give us a piece of information we're looking for, that's what it looks like it says. All right, I'll leave it as an open question, maybe I'll follow up with somebody on the pension commission.
To me, in general, I don't think we really get much information from these pension committee minutes. We've asked for more detail in terms of the reports. We got something last month. We really, based on what we get, have no idea what goes on with the pension committee, in my opinion. So that's something we can
We can certainly talk about
address
all
it
the-
going
yeah.
forward.
And actually, the pension committee reports through the first selectman's
Wednesday.
office, but
Wednesday.
not to the Board of Finance, but certainly we can ask for improved
information.
documentation. You're right. All right, item 4, review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for January 2017. Good evening. Good evening.
Hello.
Okay, what would you like to bring to our attention?
I will start and then pass over to Linda. So expenditures for the month of January were $4,485,263.77. Expenditures and encumbrances through the end of January were 51.83% of the budget, as compared to...
Excuse me a second, I forgot my glasses.
as compared to 52.06% in the prior year. And the warrants we are submitting, that were submitted, totaled $2,208,021.38. And we did just learn that excess cost grant will be coming to us in the amount of $1,300,797, which is, represents 72.4% of what
Which means your
we should be.
estimate last month is 70%, so we'll be closer to $300,000 underwater, or has that changed?
It changed.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I'll start passing them around.
Okay. I'm sorry, Katie.
Nope, that's,
That it?
that's, yes.
That was
So
all the news that's fit.
That's, that's all the excitement I have to share at the moment. I don't know if people have any questions about that or
I'm
anything
sure we have some other
related.
questions. Thanks. But this is a good place to jump off.
Yes, so right now, my projection for tuition is that we are going to be $445,000 over budget. We had revised costs for one outplacement. The figures that I originally had did not include some of the services that was required for one student. And that added to our overage.
You say the overage above the 300,000 projection you gave before, not the entire 445.
Right. The
Okay, so-
additional overage.
So the change in your previous estimate was one
Right.
student, basically? Okay.
We did have one outplacement change. There was a student that had come back that I accidentally included in the December report. That should not have been included.
So,
And this, I'm sorry, this is revised to reflect the anticipated excess cost payment. So this reflects the the $1.3 million that we should be getting.
gotcha. All right, so I'm going back let's see, how far back? 12/31, I'm sorry. So that's why we are at 27 versus 28 from last
Yes.
month? Okay, understood. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
What I think the important part to understand, at least for this board and hopefully for those in the audience, is that the Board of Education had budgeted for the current fiscal year a total of 25 students to participate in private tuition. And the anticipated amount was $1,530,000. The reality is that there are 27 students, and the now projected actual expenses are almost 2.9 million, so about $1.4 million above what we had projected at this time last year. So that just continues to show the volatility of providing these services, which our children are entitled to, and we, as a society, are obligated to pay for. So, once again, 1.4 $1 million is an awful lot of money to make up. Now, the state does assist in that, but at this point, what we're looking at is a forecasted amount of almost $450,000 under budget, which has to be made up somewhere within the Board of Education's budget,
Yes.
traditionally.
And that, just to follow up on that, that was just private tuition. There's also
That's
a
just
public
private tuition,
tuition
yep.
component of this.
A good point. You want to recap what happened there, or?
No,
Yeah.
I'll let you take it.
All right, well, that also, we are actually, in terms of public tuition, we are 2 students below what we had budgeted for. However, the budgeted amount of expenditures for those 38 that we had anticipated was $882,000. The 36, based on a redistribution of what schools they attended, is anticipated to cost us $1,006,000. So there's another $200,000, which contributes to that $445,000 loss. So, thanks, Jeff.
Are these, so I have a question. May I mention that this number and this number, are these publicly available? Can I say this number or not?
Yes.
So, here's my question. We budgeted 5 students in one category to cost $370,000, which is $75,000 apiece. We ended up having only 3 students in that category, so 2 fewer.
Right.
And it cost us $713,000, or $235,000 apiece. So, when we made the budget, are the numbers so dramatically different because the tuitions changed, or because we went to a different school that charged a lot more?
On that category, the biggest change was a change in facility. We went from about a $300,000 outplacement to one that's over $500,000, just for that one facility. And that is not uncommon with those kind of placements. That a change in facility could be that dramatic of a price difference.
And the ones that are locally placed, we were off by close to 100%. We had 16 at 860, and we ended up with 20 at 1.7. So how do we miss by so much on that?
It's students moving into district. It's
No, but the cost per student, so the cost on the one went from a $300,000 to a $500,000. So I get that, that's 200 of the $350,000 difference between those students. But this is close to the same number of students. It's 25% more students, but it's double the cost. So how when we budget are we off?
I think
by
the term locally placed is important for definition here. It's not as if we're saying they're staying in district. I think locally placed means...
Within the state?
No,
or-
it means how the decision was made.
Right, yes.
It was as a result of a PPT
Yes.
as opposed to the DCF, excuse me, the DCF placed, which is a state mandated placement.
So this budget is based on a DCF placement?
No,
as-
Well, that's the-
this is the DCF placed.
Oh, okay, so what
These are
about these
locally
numbers
placed.
down here,
So
though?
these are students that were placed by a parent or by the school district, by us, at a facility outside of our schools. When the budget was developed last year, we took the number of students that we had outplaced at the time based on the rate that we have to pay for before the excess cost kicks in. But, so they were budgeted at only $75,000 each, where in reality, we have to pay up to the 75 and then the portion that the state doesn't pay us, that we don't get from the excess cost grant. So
That's only, where we're getting 72.6 though, as opposed to 75. Am I missing something there?
75% is the threshold.
Everything over that.
So,
Right.
Right.
75,000, not
I
75.
know,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
so it was budgeted each student at $75,000. When in reality, these placements, we have to pay the first 75,000.
Right.
And then anything above that,
We pay
the
28%
state,
of.
right. So, and then depending on the cost of those, and there could be a placement where it's not eligible for excess cost. Excess cost is only on certain approved facilities. And if there's a student in a facility that's not approved, we have to pay the full cost. So there could be a number of factors on why.
Is it also accurate that sometimes the needs of the child may change from when you prepare the budget to
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
when the school year starts, and so that what you thought was going to be appropriate for one student when you're crafting the budget, another PPT is done, and
And it
then
can be
a
completely
decision is
different.
made to change the scope of services that they need and correspondingly the location to where they go.
And just to add, I mean, as you notice, and you mentioned a 25% increase, it didn't increase for kids. If at times we have children that per cost are upwards of 200,000 or more, it's very hard to budget for, obviously, but it makes that unexpected increase somewhat understandable.
Right, so in theory, those extra 4 kids could be 200 each, which is 800, which would account for all of that money on that line.
Potentially. More likely, it is a combination of that and the fact that we have kids who start out the year or are projected from last spring to need a certain number or certain type of service, and then their needs change over the course of the months into the school year.
So your budget last year, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so when you budget then, it looks as if you're budgeting for more like a best-case scenario as opposed to, well, the four you don't, I appreciate the fact that you can't budget for that. But you are sort of budgeting aggressively then. You don't really leave yourself any room for cost increases.
It's hard to,
I mean,
that's
it's
really hard to do.
difficult,
No, I mean, I think what we do is we try to budget for what we know and what we expect will be the needs of the children that we know about for the coming year. As you can imagine, it's a little hard to budget for the unknown, and this is not news to any of you. This tuition line is just in general a moving target. It's really challenging.
All right.
Okay, other questions on the Board of Ed expenditures for the month? Lou?
I have a couple.
So I was trying to coordinate the medical expense numbers, and in your summary report, which is always very helpful, you have a medical line item for January of $819,970.50, which jumped out at me because I remember thinking when I looked at the medical benefits report, we were having a great year, which was $751,152, but you have to add in the $100,000 of admin to that, but those numbers still don't add up. And then just to make it even more exciting, do you think you have a
There
quick
is-
answer?
Yeah, I do have a quick answer to that.
Well, let me give you
That
the
is-
third
that-
number.
Okay, go ahead.
So then the third number is in your warrants where you're paying $996.
The answer to the first question is, that is the anticipated amount of contribution the board makes on a monthly basis, which is on the bottom side of the sheet in terms, that is the revenues that come from,
So that's a fixed number?
that's a fixed number. So,
So then what's the warrant?
So what's in the warrant is what we contribute to the medical fund. What shows up on the 3-page summary in the expense is net of the co-pays and the payments that we get from our retirees.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's less than
So
what's,
different reports, different purposes.
right.
Exactly.
All right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. That's good. That's, among the universe of answers, that was the best of the answers. So there's another one kind of jumped out at me. Too bad Ken's not here. He would like this. There's an $800 repair to the roof at Guilford High School. Now, not that $800 is going to get anybody completely wired, but it's virtually brand new.
Yes.
So what happened?
I assume,
It was from contractors walking on the roof.
They don't have like those little shoes that they put on? And so who's paying for that?
We do. There's no way to prove which contractor it was when we're up there. It could be one of our own guys, to be honest with you. It could be a maintenance guy up there doing filters, and they drop a screwdriver or step on a nail or a screw or something like that.
And at what level would we be able to utilize our various insurance policies to cover something like that?
we have a $10,000.
It's $10,000 deductible? Okay.
Yes.
So $800
Doesn't quite get us there.
So then a small item in a category that is near and dear to my heart is but I didn't realize this happened, Baldwin Music Travel.
What page?
Sorry, on the warrants, page 14. Is Baldwin, it's only 100, and it's got to be a feature or something. I mean, you're not moving an entire band for $121.
It's a teacher that works between two schools.
So it gets mileage.
Yes.
It's like reimbursement. mileage.
Yes.
Any others?
No, since we're nitpicking, I see a snow blower. Is that for the, why, what
Because our
school,
custodians,
is that the high school?
no, well, I'm not sure which location that was for. Our custodians do clear the sidewalks.
So all the schools have snow blowers?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Baldwin Water Lines, $8,700, is that a surprise, or did we know that was coming?
Which one's that? I'm sorry.
Baldwin Water Line Repair,
What page?
11. About 10 down.
I'm not sure on that one, but since Cliff is here, well, Rotolo.
I'm trying to remember. To be honest with you, I can't remember
We'll-
that one off the top of my
we'll get back
head.
to you
I
on
have to go
that
back
one.
to that one.
By the linebacker protection.
And the only other, I probably asked this before, when I see septic at the various schools for $3,000 or $4,000, is that for Porto cans, or is that septic pump out? What is that exactly?
No, that's septic pump out. There's,
Is that for one pump out?
no, wait,
Is that a yearly fee? What is that? For 3 of them? Seems expensive if it's one pump out. And Tecogen was another question I had. Are they a new, what is Tecogen? What do they do?
that's up at the high school. That's, it's the motor that burnt out. Cliff, you can do this one better than I can.
The Tecogen is the cogeneration plant at the high school. It creates heat and electricity. So we have a maintenance program through Tecogen, and they monitor it for us. And those invoices are for the monitoring and maintenance of that piece of equipment.
And since I have you, do we have any idea of what we're saving by having gone to the cogeneration versus not?
No, I'm looking into that, finding out what we're saving, actually.
And it's just for the high school?
Correct.
So to Whitfield, you're going to get me the pump out, and you're going to get me the water line? Okay. Thank you.
Others?
I had one question. The workers' compensation, this may just be timing,
Yeah,
but
that's
it seems to be at a higher rate this year than last year. I'm on like 71% expended so far, and last year at this time we were 30, or just under 50%. That,
It's, no, it's, I'm cleaning up what used to be, in prior years, we had 4 quarters were always paid in a year, but we paid 3 quarters of the current year and 1 quarter of the future year. And I'm trying to straighten that out, so our timing is a little different, but I'm getting the 4 proper quarters into the right fiscal year.
okay.
So it throws it off.
Could we stay on that? There were no January expenditures, though?
Workers' comp is quarterly.
It is quarterly? That's, okay. Last. Others? None? None? Going once, going twice? Sold. Thank you very much. All right. Is there a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for January 2017 in the amount of $4,482,136?
I'll make that motion, as just read.
Question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Thank you. Good evening, Eugene. We'll start with revenues? Here we go.
The first thing I'd like to note on the revenues is that the percentages for January 16, although the detail is correct, the totals are incorrect, so if you'd like to, when you get to that, I'll tell you what they are. If everybody's there, the total for the town should be 91.0%, and the grand total 89.4%, although the detail is correct. The totals were carried over incorrectly. So at the end of January, we have brought in $86.9 million. I'd like to note that we've been talking about tax collection for a couple of months, and you'll see that tax collection has geared up and has helped our percentages this month, bringing us to 93.3% as of the end of January. The only line item that is still lagging behind is the police department. Not sure if that one will ever catch up, but otherwise all of our other revenues seem to be holding true to where they should be at this point.
Tax collection, it'd be nice to know the breakout of the current year's taxes versus, for 2017 versus 2016, but we don't have room on this, on the detail. It looks as if we are significantly ahead in terms of prior year's taxes.
Yes.
Any particular rationale for that?
I don't
Okay.
know that.
It's a little early in your
Yeah.
tenure to be able to figure it out.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Okay. Town clerk up at 75%. Is there? Let's take a look at that.
The town clerk fees have been very good lately, and you'll see that in our budget. We have increased that budget for the coming year.
Is that, it looks like it's conveyance taxes, which
yes, and-
suggests property is turning
moving,
over?
yes.
Is turning over?
And that is exactly the line that you'll see in the budget that has increased as a budget figure for next year.
And again, this is an unfair question, but commercial or residential properties, a large portion of that, would you know? Commercial. Good. Anything else? Anybody else? Questions on revenue? None? Expenditures.
Okay, as of the end of January, we have expenditures of $52.2 million, including the Board of Education, which is 56.9% spent, which is virtually where we were this time last year. We've talked about pretty much all of the items that are of question mainly the encumbrances as of now are really the ones that are driving the budgets being over, or looking that they're over where we are today. Otherwise, unless you have any other questions, I think we've touched on most of them the past couple of months.
Insurance, is that just timing on the difference?
Exactly right, yep.
And natural resources we've talked about.
That's an
trees,
encumbrance.
trees, right? An encumbrance in,
Correct, it's mainly the encumbrance that's shooting that up. Mhm.
anybody else? Warrants? Just had a quick question. Warrants, the ones that were in the packet, page 26. At this point, do we only have 4 individuals that qualify for the pension, the fire pension? Is that right? Because there were only 4 payouts, and for some reason, I thought we had more that had qualified. That's the volunteer firefighters pension, Charlie?
As far as I know.
Is there only 4?
Yes, Ken.
Well, there's maybe 4 for this year,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, because this is a monthly invoice, right? No, it's $300 for the year, right?
Those may be the ones who are beyond the 15 years certain.
Okay.
Okay, it's 15 years in life or certain.
Yeah.
So those are the individual checks, probably for those 4 individuals that exceeded 81.
Gotcha. Okay. It just didn't look like it was enough. Anybody else?
I have a couple on the warrants. Public Works on page 10 of the general fund weekly checks. It says there's 1, 2, 3, 4 separate entries, relatively small, but for 40, it says 47 driveway. Water. Why are there separate?
Invoice
You can
dates.
see the invoice dates are different, so probably just covering them all at this time.
Well, what is that? What is that location?
47 driveway.
47 driveways, their location.
Public Works.
It's their garage, yeah.
Okay. There's on page 14 of the same report, there's a $5,800 expense for the phone system for Park and Rec. Was that from, and then another $5,000 for Public Works. What exactly did that involve? A replacement of the entire system? Is it some sort of a software update?
Replacing the entire system in both facilities.
Is that from Frontier?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Frontier. And then one more. Page 22. I mean, I can think of a bunch of reasons for this, but there's a 32-inch TV for, I think it's in the police, at the police department. Is there a screen out there in the public space? There's a 32-inch TV the police bought?
That's probably part of their reconfiguration of their dispatch area.
So they use that like as a monitor, a computer
Yep,
monitor?
exactly. If you go in there now, you can't see the TVs. You know, when you walk in, you used to be able to see all their monitors. Now you can't. Rearranged it, and that's part of their reconfiguration of their dispatch.
Okay, great.
Any others?
Oh, I did have one more, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, baseball season coming up, but that's not it.
On page 31 of the same warrant, Constellation New Energy, it looks like there's a utility bill, then there's a bill for traffic signals. It's just an odd amount. It says traffic signals, $244. I mean, is that a repair? It can't even be a purchase. It's under street lighting?
We pay Constellation New Energy a small portion of the entire utility bill. It's part of our contract.
So, but, okay. For the traffic signals?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just don't remember ever seeing that before. Okay, that's it. Sure. Positive.
Okay. Anybody else?
Quick question.
Certainly, Mike.
Special fund? Grad sports for the athletic field. It's almost 59,000. I'm just wondering, are we are we complete? Is that the last payment to them for that? I know Cliff's out there, so maybe, yeah, I'm looking right at you, Cliff. Actually, two related questions. One, is that the last payment, or is there anything expected more to Rad Sports for the turf field, number one? Number two, are we expecting anything left on the high school as far as payment? Because I haven't seen any the last couple months, so.
I know they've completed the
Fields?
turf field.
Yeah.
I am not
Beautiful,
sure-
but-
Right, I'm not certain whether or not they have more billing to go on that. And then, again, I'm not sure with the billing where they stand for that project overall.
Okay, I just haven't seen anything, so I was just curious whether there was anything else expected on the high school project, so. Okay,
Is that it, Mike?
that is it.
Anybody else? No? Let's talk to the medical accountant, I guess, at this point. Another good month financially, as well as obviously for the health of the town's employees. We are now projecting a surplus in the medical benefits account of 1.76 or 1.7, almost 1.8 million dollars, which, when added to fund balance at the end of last fiscal year, minus the incurred but not yet reported, we're projecting a positive fund balance of over $2 million in that account. So we're in very good shape on that. As I think we had at least talked over the years that it would be, obviously you want to be able to cover your IBNR, and having another month cushion makes all the sense in the world in the event that you change your plan at some point, because you have enough cash on hand to cover it. So those are good numbers. Anybody else with anything else? Building permits or golf course? Geez, we're only going to see about 5 more of these reports for golf course, huh?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the bills for the town for the month of January 2017 in the amount of $1,841,757?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from discussion and voting on that item.
You can recuse yourself from one item if you need to.
No.
You going to do the entire?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as you read it for the record.
And second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? One. Thank you, John. Item 6, receive the proposed Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. Are we going with our traditional 3-part harmony on this?
A little different. Mr. Bowden, here, the Assistant Superintendent, is going to be presenting on behalf of Dr. Freeman. Dr. Freeman is in the Kingdom of Jordan as we speak. He is part of a team from the NEAG School of Education at the University of Connecticut that has a relationship with the King's Academy in Jordan, where they are sharing techniques and ideas and collaborating, and so he will be back, but he sends his regrets that he is not able to be here this evening, but Mr. Bowden will be helping with that part of the presentation.
Good evening. Good evening. There'll be no comparisons between the presentation and the
Thank you.
You need to be shorter.
somewhere in Jordan. Mr. Freeman just got a crack in his neck, Dr. Freeman.
He's asleep right now, isn't he, Bill?
I would never say that if I wouldn't say it in his presence.
Bill say that?
So I'd just like to start off this evening by saying that when you begin a budget build, which we begin in September of every year, the Board of Education starts with 4 key principles to align their budget to. And the first is the district vision, mission, and priorities. The slide that you see in front of you is one that you've seen for the last couple of years with some modifications to it. The district focuses on instruction, and visionary leadership, obviously professional learning, and a strong belief that effort creates ability in our students. The district priorities for 2016 and 2017 have been posted since September of this school year. The 3 priorities, again, reiterate what we've just talked about in terms of what the vision of the district is, that our students will be engaged in academically rigorous tasks, that teaching and learning will be supported by instructionally focused leadership, and that our schools will be a safe, healthy, and caring place for learning. The 2016 initiatives to support these priorities are listed, have been listed on the website. Things that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, including the development and ongoing professional development around professional learning communities, communities that are using high leverage practices in classrooms to really center on productive talk and feedback and writing. We've worked very diligently to support math instruction throughout the district, and you'll see some of that come out in this budget presentation tonight in terms of where we're taking that, as well as looking at our assessments as a means to not only inform us of how our students are doing, but how we're doing instructionally as well. The third budgetary pillar that we use to align our budget goals as a school district involve budget assumptions. Again, I spoke of the safe and healthy school environment. These items I reiterated in a prior slide, but just emphasized in this slide. The fourth item, really, when you're building a budget, starts with enrollment and where we are as a district. And the slide that you see in front of you obviously looks at our student growth throughout the district from 13-14 through next year. I would like to point out that the slide is projecting that we will be down 65 students next year. However, I would caution you to note that this year we were projected to be down 79 students. And at this point in the year, we're up 24 from last year. So, you know, we've had a swing of 103 students in district from what the projection was to what we actually have. So you have to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. This slide also shows that we have a very big 8th grade that will be moving into 9th grade this year, as well as a big 4th grade that will be moving into 5th grade. The Board of Education's proposed, in this case adopted budget, is $58,770,136, which represents an increase over the fiscal year 16-17 of $863,345, which when you break it down to a percent increase, breaks down to a 1.49% increase. I'll note that Superintendent Freeman's budget that he presented to the Board of Education earlier in the year was slightly over $1 million and was presented at a 1.9% increase. The history of increases slide demonstrates that since Dr. Freeman's time in the district, that this budget represents the smallest increase we have ever requested of the town of Guilford, outside of the reductions that occurred last year due to the 2 failed referendums. When you're building a budget, you work very hard to look for efficiencies or savings, within your organization. We've realized several this year, And I want to take a second to really commend my colleagues on the Board of Education who have worked extremely hard with me in contract negotiations this past year and years prior. We have reduced the medical line as a result of contract negotiations by moving all of our unions that we provide insurance for to a high deductible health plan. This year, this July moving forward, our teachers will be moving into the high deductible health plan, in which we've netted a savings of over $500,000 by doing that. When we look at salaries, we looked at our enrollments, our class sizes, and where applicable, we were able to reduce some of our teaching positions, some of our para positions. We've taken and reallocated some of the existing FTEs that we have to repurpose them in throughout the district in areas that we have need. And when we have hired, based on need and retirement, we have hired less experienced teachers at a lower rate, which have netted us some savings. In regards to supplies and materials, that line has been reduced as a result of enrollment adjustments, for the most part due to a formula we use as a per student expense. Of course, we can't talk about savings within a district without looking at areas where costs are increasing. The cost drivers we have in this budget are in 5 distinct areas, which you see on the screen. For the most part, they are non-discretionary. However, I think it's important to note that the cost drivers that are listed here versus the increases we have exemplifies the importance of the efficiencies or savings that we had mentioned earlier, because the total increase as it stands is at $863,345.
I can just note that the 3 of the 5 items there that are labeled as cost drivers, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th are special education, relates to some of the budgeting issues that we were talking about earlier.
Dr. Freeman each year comes to you and says that this is not a status quo budget, and it isn't, because we look at each year individually. We are never satisfied with where we are. We always want to do better. This budget does represent an investment in continued improvement, and we expected throughout this budget process to be responsive to our community and offer improved and expanded services. What do these investments look like? Math coaches, IB, special education, athletics, and capital, and I'll speak briefly on each one. Math coaching. I want to point out that, each year we talk about coaching in the district, that this is instructional coaching. It's embedded professional development that goes on every day throughout the school year, where an instructional coach is available to teachers to work on their teaching skills, to work on the implementation of units that go back to the high leverage practices, instructional practices that I had mentioned earlier in one of the earlier slides. On the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see that this is our current model. We have 6 literacy coaches in district, 1 math specialist and 1 math coach, for a total of 8. And the literacy coaches span K through 6, and the math coaches span grades 6 through 8. What we're proposing for next year is to take a portion of what we had existing and reallocate that into other areas by adding 1 FTE in this area, a new math coach, for an increase from 8 to 9. But I want to point out that the span of embedded development, professional development that will be able to offer throughout the district is vastly increased just by that 1 position, which in the budget line is that 1 FTE equates to about $100,000. So you'll notice that we're maintaining literacy coaching, but now we're extending math coaching into 6 additional grade levels. Mr. Vicente and his high school staff have been working diligently through throughout the past couple of years on the implementation of an IB, or an International Baccalaureate program. They've received the go-ahead from the International Baccalaureate program to move forward next year and begin offering those classes in that program to students at Guilford High School. We are able to do that next year by utilizing our existing staffing. We note that the exam costs will be something that will be carried by the families of the students who are in the program, much like we have for students that are taking AP classes. However, the district will be picking up the cost for IB membership, registration, and the fees involved in other items that are associated with the IB program. The cost in our current, or our proposed budget for this line item is $33,000. Our special ed programming is such that we will be moving a cadre of students in specialized programs from Baldwin Middle School into Adams. They progressed, if you remember, those of you who've been following this for some years now, from the lower elementary grades up into Adams now. And in this case here, we are utilizing existing teaching and paraprofessional staff to bring this program into Adams. And we're taking the space and the facility costs associated with that and embedding it in our site improvement lines. The only additional staffing that we'll need for this will be a part-time, a 0.5 school psychologist that will work both at Baldwin and at Adams. And the cost on this to this FTE, this 0.5 FTE, is $30,000. One of the things that we heard loud and clear coming out of our budget workshops earlier in the year, they came out at every meeting that we had in great numbers, were concerns related to cheerleading and the reinstatement of cheerleading at Guilford High School, as well as the addition of a new program at Guilford High School, a boys swim team and a girls swim team. Having heard that, we have included in this budget at a cost of $18,000 coaching positions for these three entities. It will not include other costs associated with the program. In our capital line, you'll see four proposals that we're bringing forward to you, one of which is the Baldwin Middle School electrical upgrades for the HVAC system that will be going in at a later date. But as you saw in the facility needs assessment that we had done several years ago, there was a great need for an upgrade. It's the original electrical system, obviously, in Baldwin, and this will be the first step in an HVAC upgrade to that building. That would be at $2,740,888. The Baldwin Windows and Doors project is listed at $632,262. And the Melissa Jones roof allotment is at $380,882. The architectural and engineering piece is listed there for a proposed bond request this year of $3,963,831. And I believe that Linda has provided you with description sheets.
I just have a quick question there.
Yep.
Your cost estimates on that, I noticed, are from, based on 2012 numbers. If we bond for that and it proves to be low, which everything seems to be since it's been 5 years, how do we pay for that?
What would you like to?
We do add in contingencies, escalation costs, bond issuance, and other.
I saw the contingency number in there. Is that to account for the time difference?
Correct, some of it, yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to staffing, a staffing summary for the district. You'll see that we have various reductions in the teacher line, as well as the addition of a math coach and the school psychologist for an overall reduction of a 0.9 FTE. We have a reduction in the paraprofessional line of 4 paraprofessionals, and the additional request, an addition of one FTE as a custodial position in district, for an overall staffing impact of a minus 3.9 positions. Mr. Bloss?
So I'm going to talk very briefly about the benefit side of the cost-benefit scale, but then talk about some other issues that I think this board may be interested in. We are accountable, obviously, and that we do expect there to be some benefit from our cost-benefit analysis. And the State Department of Education issued an accountability report that says that Guilford is the number 6 public school district in the state of Connecticut. Obviously significantly above our purely demographic data. The state says that Guilford High School is 4th in the state behind New Canaan, Ridgefield, and Weston, and 4 of the 84 schools of distinction in the state of Connecticut are in Guilford. CONCAN continues to rate Guilford High School at the top level and one of the top 10 high schools in the state of Connecticut. School Digger says also Adams has a high level of achievement. U.S. News and World Report, the data I think is important on this is the second bullet. The actual performance on standardized tests is better than predicted based on demographics alone, and that's something we're particularly proud of. We're really demographically toward the bottom part of the district reference group, DIRG B, where we are classed along with 23 other schools. But we actually perform in the top part of the reference group in both math and particularly in language arts. So what about the cost? This is data I think I talk about every year, but I'm going to just do it quickly. We're the 49th largest town in the state. Those are our per capita and median household income figures. Very low level of unemployment in Guilford. Our net current expenditures per pupil, right in the middle. Our equalized mill rate is actually relatively low, much lower than the average in the state of Connecticut. The adjusted tax levy per capita is 33rd. Now that obviously includes the town side and the Board of Education side. Grand list per capita is about the same. Debt per capita about the same and near average. That's all from the OPM municipal fiscal indicators. Our request is for a 1.49% increase. That is below the rate of inflation predicted for next year and actually even through 2020, where it's predicted to be around 2.5%. So what does this mean? What does the Board of Education's proposal mean for somebody's property tax bill? This is our current mill rate, 28 mills. Assuming that there is no increase in the grand list and no increase in town income, that for a house with a fair market value of $500,000, the Board of Education requested increase would add about $149 to property taxes. For a house with a fair market value of $300,000, it would be about $89. And of course, as I am the only good thing I'm going to say about property taxes, I'll say it right now, it is deductible so that there is in fact an indirect federal subsidy depending on whatever your margin, assuming you itemize and assuming depending on what your marginal tax rate is, the federal government in fact will pay a portion of whatever any property tax increase would be. And then for the 800 families in the senior tax freeze, no increase. Mr. Mazza and I attended a meeting not long ago. That program is in very good shape with the benefit level, I think, is plateaued. I'm sure your board will get more data on that, but it is an unqualified success. What's happening in other towns? Well, this is what's happening in some other towns, and they face some of the same pressures that we do. But we have, I think, as Mr. Bowden said, that we've been quite positive about some of our contractual negotiations. So we're getting some benefits on the health benefit line that some towns are not getting. And I want to just talk briefly about something that I think I've mentioned a few times. What if you don't have kids in school? Why does this budget matter for you? And one reason, putting aside there's the value of making sure that the next generation is educated, the value of your house is directly related to the quality of schools. Expenditure per pupil is positively correlated with housing price and is statistically significant. With one standard deviation change in variables on performance, a 3 to 5% change in house price, according to a study, the effect of school quality on residential sales price. A study from Duke. Now, obviously, housing prices depend on a lot of variables. Our open space here, the access to medical care, transportation. Our open space here, the access to medical care, transportation matter on housing prices. But even controlling for all those variables, better school quality has a positive impact because people, and this makes sense, people are willing to pay more to live in a town where the school system is good. This study, again from Duke, shows that a 10% increase in high school scores can lead to a 5% increase in housing prices. The Federal Reserve from Philadelphia, the premium for housing prices for high academic performance in public schools clearly exists, and it is an important factor in the difference between house prices across neighborhoods. There's a couple of efforts to try to quantify it. This study shows that for every dollar spent on public schools in a community, home values increased by $20. And Realtor magazine concluded that quoted a study from the Brookings Institution that says that it adds about $200,000 in total living in a high-scoring public school district rather than a low-scoring district. So let's talk about what we all want to talk about a little bit, shall we? What about the state budget? Yeah, no, look, I mean, this is obviously something that, this is something that and I'm going to make a proposal tonight that we neither act as if a bomb has just been thrown into the middle of the room, nor that nothing is happening. And that we take some time, catch our breaths, try to get as much information that we can from the state legislature, and acknowledge that we may need to make some additional changes. I think it's a mistake. Well, let me stick with let me stick with this. Guilford's budget referendum is April 18th. Last day of the General Assembly session, June 7th. State budget implementer session, maybe 2 weeks later. So in other words, a week or two before our fiscal year starts, the final state budget may be voted on. So it's just sitting here today, it is impossible to know what the state budget is going to look like, but I think it is highly likely that the General Assembly is going to make major changes to the governor's proposals. But even if it doesn't, we don't get that much from the state anyway right now. We get about 8% of our budget, the Board of Ed budget. Now that doesn't count ECS, but the Board of Ed budget is from state aid. So why shouldn't we, as responsible public servants, why shouldn't we just assume that the governor's budget will pass? Because it's not going to. There is nowhere near enough support in the General Assembly, in my opinion, to enact this budget. Why? This is the director of the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. It's a little bit of a Robin Hood approach, take from the wealthy and give to the poor. Well, we've all read Robin Hood. The targets in the Robin Hood story didn't agree to be targeted. That is effectively what this budget asks. It asks the suburban legislators to say, we want you to acquiesce in this, and it just seems highly unlikely that it is going to happen. And the head of the CEA, the Connecticut Education Association, makes the same point. You don't lift the poor communities by having holes created in the middle class. So I want to talk just for a second about ECS because I want to preface this by saying we all want healthy urban areas. We depend in Guilford and Branford and East Haven on a healthy New Haven to be the economic engine of the entire region. We get that. We get that because of the way our government is structured here and the tax structure, that there are pockets of intense poverty around the state of Connecticut, and with very lagging performance academically. All of those things are true. However, to the extent that the message behind the governor's budget seems to be that we are not funding education in urban areas reasonably, I think there's some facts that may be at odds with that. Now, I want to talk about what net current expenditure per pupil. New Haven, a little over $18,000. Well, New Haven has an ECS grant of over $142 million from the state of Connecticut against a total net annual budget or expenditure of $347 million. So about 40% of their net current expenditures are straight from the ECS, the state of Connecticut ECS grant. Guilford, we spend about $1,500 less per student. We get about $2.7 million out of a $58 million budget. So already you can see that we already spend a great deal as a state in the urban areas. So if the belief is that we are not adequately funding the urban areas, then I think we need some more dialogue on that, and we need to actually consider some of these facts. Hartford, $187 million. Bridgeport, Waterbury, New Britain, Meriden. The 30 cities and towns that would stand to benefit from the governor's proposal receive in just ECS grants. Now, I'm not talking about excess cost grants. I'm not talking about anything else. This is just educational cost sharing. Almost $1.2 billion. The rest of the state of Connecticut, $685 million. Yeah. This is right off this is the 16-17 ECS by district. Yeah. So the governor's proposal would move the 685 up to those 30 alliance cities and towns. The 139 towns all have state representatives and state senators. It just seems exceedingly unlikely that it's going to look quite like this. But what's driving that proposal? Cities do have higher mill rates. That is true. The equalized mill rate for Waterbury is #1 in the state. For Bridgeport, 2nd. Hartford, 3rd, and so forth. Guilford, we have a relatively low equalized mill rate. Equalized mill rate meaning the adjusted tax levy divided by the equalized net grand list. That's something that tries to take into account the difference in revaluation. That you want to try to take the actual market value of property rather than the value under the specific revaluation. But it's not just about mill rates. Tax levy per capita, we're quite high. Madison and Guilford, relatively speaking, about equal with our economic status. Remember, I showed you we were about 30th in the state in income per capita. But if you look at the tax levy per capita in the cities, it's much lower. Why? That's because of the state aid. Okay? So this is, I think, again, I really don't want to set up a fight with the cities. We recognize that the cities matter to us, but is the value in our moving that number from 3,570 for Guilford to say 3,900 and moving New Haven's from 1,900 to 1,600? I'm not sure that's good policy, but that's something that we're going to have to take into account. What about the proposal for towns to pay 1/3 of teacher pension costs? This may be one of the worst ideas I've ever seen from a policy point of view. Why? Because the state of Connecticut, the General Assembly, sets what the teacher benefits are. We have no say in it. The state contributions are set by a vote of the General Assembly. We have no say in it. State auditors have claimed that 100% of actuarial determined contributions were actually made, even go through 2015. However, there's another paragraph in these reports, the auditors of public accounts, that note unfunded liabilities ranging from $9 billion to $12 billion, and apparently the actuary didn't suggest that they start to pay down that unfunded liability. I don't get that, frankly. I know that on the Board of Education, we get reports from the pension committee. When we have an unfunded liability, we get a plan to make it up. So in any event, I think it's going to be a very hard sell to push this onto towns. It is true that teacher salaries are negotiated by the BOEs, but it's only within the state structure of binding arbitration. The state's plan is a defined benefit plan. And we have worked very hard with all of our bargaining units where we are responsible for the pensions to have defined contribution plans, and I think the town has done the same. So while we have been very responsible, the state, I think, has not paid the attention to its obligations that it should have. Now, but there may be some room to talk here in that we may be able to try to reduce and remove a list of unfunded mandates that have a real financial cost on the town. I think there is a moral sense that if you're not giving us any or much money, you kind of should just leave us alone. And I think that actually has a very attractive linkage this particular budget season. We have very burdensome teacher evaluations, reporting requirements. There is a report to the State of Connecticut Department of Education on just about everything we do, and it is very hard to argue that there is value in all of those reports. So we are going to propose to our delegation that if there is any reduction in state funding, there should be a dollar-for-dollar reduction in unfunded state mandates. So we encourage people to go to our website and look at more data. We have got some videos set up on the website about the budget presentation, academic performance, return on investment, and facilities improvements. So thank you, and we'd be glad to answer any questions that you have or defer it till next meeting.
Specifically, your budget was to wait till the public hearing and then the workshops.
I have one general question.
Sure.
The money that they're proposing the towns put in to cover the pension costs, I believe it's roughly 450 or 470 million for this year and next year. Is that to cover the actuarial recommended contribution for this year, or is that to make up for prior deficits?
I think it's to make up for prior deficits. Now, I haven't seen the specific proposal. I know the dollar amount is about $2.7 million, I believe. But my understanding is it's to try to catch up.
And the formula they're using is the state is required to contribute 30% of teachers' salaries to the fund. They've clearly just taken 1/3 and dumped it down on the municipalities. Question I have is, when do we get the second third, and when do we get the third, and wind up with the whole plan?
Well, there is some history in the state of Connecticut that is they put their foot in the door on an expense and then wind up shifting it more and more. I mean, that's been the case with ECS. It's been the case with special education. There is some justification for that concern. Yeah. And the problem is that among the problems is that it just shifts more onto the property tax that is just not designed to bear this kind of burden. It's not a good tax to meet this level of public services. But so I think it's very unlikely.
Right.
But what is going to be likely? I don't know.
I think what is, let's talk, you used a very good presentation. Let's talk about some other facts. The state has got a $1.7 billion hole. To expect that we weren't going to get hit, we weren't going to share in some of the pain to alleviate the statewide problem would be foolish. So there will be some pain. I don't think there's any question. I do agree with you in your analysis of the 130, the 140 some odd legislative districts that are getting hurt in this thing. I don't think the governor's budget is not going to be passed along the way it is. There's no question at all. So I think we unfortunately we still only have 3.5 weeks before we have to put a budget out. So we're going to have to make some assumptions. And I think, I tend to agree with you, I think we have to be realistic, we have to be pragmatic. I think we have to assume that we are going to suffer some level of decreased funding from the state of Connecticut. Is it, at this point, just so people understand, it's $5 million. In fact, to the town of Guilford. In fact, we will be writing a check, based on the governor's proposal, we will be writing a check to the state of Connecticut for $250,000. Once you net out the cuts in the ECS, the various other municipal aid programs, and the expected contribution for the teacher's retirement. We will literally write.
Can I suggest you would instead of will? Because
Right.
will is not going to happen.
I said, if the governor's budget goes through, we would, okay, we would, as they stand, we would be obligated to write that check. So that's how significant those numbers are. It is, and those of you who can do the math in your head, $5 million on a $95 million budget is somewhere north of 5% tax increase right away. Before we talk about the initiatives and we talk about your budget and the selectmen's budget. These are serious numbers, and I agree with you, Bill. They're not going to, the numbers that were presented are not going to be the ones that eventually wind up there. But at some point, and collectively, this community, and when I say this is not just the Board of Finance's decision. This is going to be a collaborative decision, at least in my mind, between the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen, to arrive at some reasonable conclusions and assumptions as to how we should proceed. Because these are uncharted times, uncharted waters. But we're going to have to make some kind of accommodation for some pain and some cuts.
I can make a couple of suggestions to the public. One is I'd urge people to contact Senator Kennedy and Representative Scanlon and Representative Candelora. And just, I think that they are quite aware of what the impact is on Guilford, but I think I'd urge people to get in touch with them and let them know how it would impact us. We have invited them to our March Board of Ed meeting and expect all of them to be there. And we're going to talk about some of these things. We're going to set aside quite a bit of time to talk about some of these things. Again, though, the problem is the Appropriations Committee is going to probably vote out a bill in the end of April, and the Appropriations Committee bill may not even be the final version of the bill. It's
let's not forget, last year we faced a similar situation. The state was made some cuts last year. However, it was short session, so they had the appropriations bill out prior to, they had at least one appropriations bill out prior to us going to referendum, and we made some accommodations. We sort of went somewhere in between the governor's budget and the appropriations budget when we put it out the last year. We don't have that luxury because this is the long session. So, Joe, you and I had a conversation yesterday, day before, in your talk with Vinnie Candelora and what he recommended.
Yeah.
From, and I don't want to steal your thunder because that's part of the presentation in terms of what we anticipate for revenues.
That's why I didn't jump in.
Yeah.
But, I have had conversations with Representative Scanlon, and I know he was in the other room, Representative Candelora and Senator Kennedy, and said all what you have said for the last 10 or 15 minutes. And they understand, at least two representatives understand that Guilford can't stand this cut. And I've been told that this budget is, at least from Representative Candelora, that this budget that the governor presented is DOA. But Board of Selectmen, I will mention this in my presentation, Board of Selectmen did make some accommodations in our budget on the ECS side. But you're right, Mr. Bloss, that everyone in this room and is looking at this tape should contact our representatives and make it known that all these suburban towns can't afford these cuts. And you're right about that number. It is $250,000 that we would have to write a check to the state of Connecticut. And it's no longer municipal aid, it now becomes state aid from the towns to the state of Connecticut.
I agree.
Okay, I'll wait my turn.
Thank you, Joe. All right, I think we'll wait to the public hearing and the workshops for detailed questions about the budget, unless the board wants to do something other than that tonight. No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great presentation. We will. I usually do that at the end. You read my mind. I've got the schedule right here. Okay. Okay.
How much time do you have?
Yeah, wait a second. Yeah. We got started late, so you probably got about 25 minutes.
That's all I need. Oh, yeah. Evening. My pleasure to present the Board of Selectmen's budget for 2017-2018. I believe this budget successfully balances our objectives to maintain property tax stability while providing the necessary resources to provide essential town services, which protects the health and safety of our citizens, maintains our capital assets and infrastructure, and improves our quality of life. This budget is not built on a house of cards, but to the contrary, it is built on sound financial judgment and analysis in spite of unprecedented reductions in state funding. The objective of this budget and key factors, first of all, is we don't rely on revenue from our undesignated fund balance. We are funding capital projects within our operating budget. We are funding our pension liabilities at our actuary recommended levels. We continue our investment in infrastructure and roads, and we maintain a high level of services despite the reduction in state funding. We continue to maintain our senior tax programs at our current levels. We are providing essential safety and public protection services, including funding for 1 additional police officer, and continue to provide a school resource officer. We continue investment in economic development. We continue investment in the ecological improvement to Lake Quanapog. We increased tree maintenance and removal program, and for the first time incorporate the Guilford Golf Course in our operating budget. The Board of Selectmen operating and debt service budget is presented in 2 parts. First of all, we have the operating budget, including the capital budget, and our second part is the debt service budget, which includes the Board of Education project as well as the new Guilford High School. The operating budget for the town is $28.7 million, which is an increase of $664,000 over the 2017 budget, or a 2.37% increase. The debt service portion of the budget is $7.9 million, which is an increase of $423,000, or 5.67% increase from the current budget. The operating budget is broken down as follows. The department submitted a budget to the Board of Selectmen which totaled $29.7 million, which was an increase of $1.7 million, or 5.88% over the current year. The Board of Selectmen then made cuts of $987,000. Gentlemen, that's almost $1 million worth of cuts. The request was about a 60% reduction in their requested budget. The cuts were made in the following way: $411,000 in department operations, $529,000 in capital expenditures, and almost $16,000 in employee benefits. Increases in the major categories. Salaries have increased 1.9%, or $271,000 over the current year. This includes all negotiated salaries increases and the addition of 1 police officer. It also has the provisions for reserve for contracts yet to be settled in the coming year. Employee benefits increased by $217,000, or 3.14%. Operating expenses increased by 1.2%, or $41,000. These increases include all expenses other than salaries, such as insurance, utilities, maintenance, fuel, and supplies. The capital expenses increased by $134,000, or 14.15%, in order to fund various infrastructure projects, roads, improvements, and to replace major equipment. The decreases in employee benefits. The pension increased the 2018 pension budget has increased by $213,000, or 9.37% from the current year. This increase is due to a lackluster performance in our investments during the 2016 fiscal year. We continue our commitment to contribute the full amount of the pension contribution recommended by our actuaries. Currently, our town pension fund is at 88.7% for the town pension plan, and our police pension is funded at 88.4%. In addition, through successful collective bargaining, the costly lump sum provision has been eliminated, and the defined benefit plan is now closed to all new hires. The pension budget also includes projected funding of almost $176,000 to the defined contribution plan. Medical cost has decreased by $54,000 due to increased contribution by our employees and the reduction on the waiver benefits. Capital projects funded by the general fund. The last piece of the operating budget is the capital fund expenditures. This year, we have increased funding from $951,000 in the fiscal year 2017 to $1,086,000 for the fiscal year 2018, which is an increase of over 14%. Some of the major projects include drainage, sidewalks, and bridge projects for $175,000, backscanning equipment and PC upgrades software of $116,000, community center improvements of $58,000, field and lake improvements of $42,000, park and rec equipment, which is vehicles, of $167,000, and police vehicles of $173,000. This slide should look familiar to you. Each year we add another bar to it, and the purpose of this slide is to show you our progress each year and how we add to the operating budget our pay-as-you-go on capital expenditures. As you can see, from 2011 to 2018, we steadily increased to a level of a little over $1 million of our capital expenditures funded out of the operating budget. Now, in 2017, we had to pare back a little bit because we went to the third referendum, if you remember. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, you have a little trouble there? It's okay, I need another drink of water. This year, we're requesting a bonding appropriation of $2.6 million for various long-term capital projects, which includes inland road reconstruction of $1 million. Over the past several years, we have concentrated on raising our coastal roads, which we asked for over $1 million. But now we're turning our attention to our inland roads, for which we're requesting $1 million. We have a request for $1.3 million for 3 emergency service equipment projects. One is a 30,000-gallon in-ground tank installation at the Cambridge subdivision of $125,000, an ambulance replacement of $260,000. That ambulance is 20 years old, and that $260,000 includes an ambulance that is fully equipped with all the equipment needed, and a heavy rescue vehicle replacement, which is 10 years old, for $1 million. There are two pieces of town facility equipment, which is not equipment, pieces of projects. Really, last time we requested a bonding appropriation was in the year 2016. This, you have to go back one, Karen.
She
Okay.
knows.
We got to get you a new computer.
We'll have to add to the budget.
Okay. This particular slide kind of demonstrate what I just said, is that we skip every other year for a bonding appropriation, and this mainly demonstrates that our requests for long-term financing of our major capital projects have decreased steadily over those years, because what we'd like to do is fund it out of operating. As you can see, back in 2012, we started at 7.7 million, and now we're down to 2.6 million. Okay, next slide, please. There you go. This slide here, we went.
You have to talk faster, Joe.
Okay. If you talk any fast, I'll be back in the Bronx. All right. This slide here is one of my favorite. It compares our bonding request over the years, including the current budget, versus what we have spent out of current operating funds. As you can see here, the bonding request slide are decreasing, and our operating capital request increase. Okay, we're there, all right? All right. A recap of our town budget from 2013 through the proposed 2018 budget demonstrates that we continue to reduce our operating budget as outlined in this slide. Keep in mind that this excludes the debt service costs for the school and town project. Please note that in year 2016, that was an anomaly, since the contribution to the town pension plan was substantially reduced by $1.4 million based on the recommendation of our actuary. The total of the last 3 years, 2016 through the proposed 2018, the overall increase of the town budget, excluding debt service, was 1.04%. Okay. Let's turn our attention to our operating revenue here. Okay. The revenue budget consists of a number of components. The largest component, obviously, is our property tax, which is calculating using the grand list as of October 1st, 2016, which has increased by almost 36%, or over $11 million. This is an increase is due to the addition of real and personal property tax, despite the loss of tax revenue due to the sale of the Goose Lane property to the Yale New Haven Hospital. The increase will add an additional $323,000 at, I'll stress this, the current mill rate. Local intergovernmental revenue for 2017-18, the local revenue generated by town departments are estimated to increase by $148,000. This is due to increases in interest income, town clerk and emergency service fees, and police outside service revenue. State grants and intergovernmental revenue is estimated for the 2017-2018 are mainly based on the February 8, 2017 governor's proposal, with the exception of the Educational Cost Sharing Grant, or the ECS, which we talked about before. Although the governor's budget estimates the elimination of $2.7 million in the ECS grant for Guilford, based on conversations I've had with the state legislative leadership, the Board of Selectmen has decided to include ECS revenue of $2.3 million, which is a 15% reduction from the current year. So what we've done here, we've taken what we are currently getting on ECS, reduced it by 15%, which you can see is a $583,000 reduction. I agree with Mr. Bloss that we're not going to take what the governor has proposed, which would be zero for us. But we did make a provision conservatively and said that we're going to reduce our revenue by 15% or $582,000 on the ECS. After applying the state revenues you see there and applying the grand list, we've come up with an estimated mill rate, or increase, I should say, of 0.65 mils needed to balance the budget.
Hey, Joe,
Yep.
the 582 looks like 20% to me.
Yeah.
Just,
We're already receiving a reduction in the
Because-
current year.
Because we received a reduction of $171,000 in this current year.
Okay, so that's netted in.
15%
Yeah.
off what we
So we netted it
expect
out.
to get this year, not what we've budgeted.
Okay. 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 All right, so what we see here is, this is a familiar chart that I think you'll recognize. The total budget for the year 2018 is $95,388,169, which incorporates the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, and the debt service. The Board of Ed comprises 62% of the budget, the town is 30%, and the debt service, which is combined Board of Ed projects, the town projects, and Guilford High School, is 8% of the total budget. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Jane to talk about our debt service.
So our debt service is comprised of three main categories. The new Guilford High School, which represents 43.6% of our total debt service, school facility improvements, 21.5%, and all other town projects at almost 35%. Through refunding of existing bonds, the town has earned proceeds that has been set aside to offset future debt payments. So in 2018, we are using $542,000 of amounts that we already have put aside, and another estimated $205,000 from the recent refundings that we just did in 2016 that are used to reduce the debt payments for 2018. This is a savings of $747,000 due to sound debt management planning.
Question, what does that leave us with for next year?
Our audit's not quite complete.
Well, no, debts are the premiums, are we, that's not the end of the premiums that we're applying?
No, there is more.
So what
There
does
is
that
more.
leave us with for next year?
The final number hasn't been determined this year through the audit. I'd say another $600,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I think I have an estimate of just over $300,000 for the next 2 years.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So this graph shows our debt for the existing and proposed capital projects for the school and the town, and it also includes estimates for authorized but not issued bonds yet. So this is everything that the town has currently agreed to bond plus what we are anticipating. So you can see from the graph that 2016 and 2017 budgets have already absorbed much of the increase due to the Guilford High School, and we kind of step it up a little bit slower due to these proceeds that I just discussed, we're able to take a reduction there. So, and then I showed the delta between the dotted line and the top of the graphs are areas where should we apply for new debt, there would be no budgetary impact, if you chose to do that. So this represents all of our debt that we have outstanding.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the continued growth in our unassigned fund balance or rainy day fund demonstrates that our prudent financial management and due diligence with our department heads continually monitor their respective budgets. In addition, we have attained a AAA rating from Standard & Poor's and Finch. They recognize our outstanding fiscal management, budgetary practices, and sound financial policies. We have also been recognized for our zero-based budgeting approach and our conservative management style. We have attained this while making improvements to our town infrastructure, initiatives such as reconstruction and an elevation of our roads, particularly in our coastal areas, and replacing our aging equipment with more efficient and reliable equipment has given us the ability to provide better service to our citizens. As always, the town remains prepared for the unexpected, and we are always ready to answer the call in any emergency. I wish to extend my appreciation and gratitude to Selectman Balistraci, Selectman Haverda, and Selectman McKelney for their support of this budget. I would also like to thank the Finance Department, especially my Finance Director, new kid on the block, Mary Jane Malabresi, and the staff of the Selectman's Office, Karen Kershaw, and of course, the heads of the department and the boards and commissions for their hard work and diligence in preparation of this budget, and the Board of Selectmen. Thank you for your consideration. And any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Good. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Joe. Joe, there is one point I want to make, and this goes back to one of your slides where you talked about our pension plan contributions.
Yep.
And the reason that we are seeing the increase there is because we are addressing known shortfalls in our plan the way we have been doing for many, many years,
Right.
as opposed to the plan that is being proposed to be funded by us, the teachers' retirement thing. We've made those hard decisions over the years to fund our pensions
Yep.
in the way they should be funded. So,
And it's one of the reasons we're being hit from the state.
Right.
Is because we're a well-funded town,
agreed.
and like all the other towns that are well-funded.
Agreed. Anybody else, comments? Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Here's your packet.
Thank you. Do you have it electronically? Electronically would be lovely as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Jane.
These are representative changes that the selectmen have made since you.
Right, right. Okay. Well, we conduct a balanced meeting. Is there anybody want any comments at this point, or wait till? We'll wait. All right, 8, committee reports. Mike? Anything? Nope. No. Old business, and we exchanged emails today about available dates. Friday looks like, the only one that everybody can handle it. If we did 3 o'clock Friday, is that, or 3 maybe? 3 o'clock Friday?
Sure.
Next week.
Next Friday. Yeah, not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow.
And we'll try not to keep you around too long. Friday's good for you?
Fine.
That's what I thought. Thank you very much. So we will talk about potential new reports, as well as the elected officials' salary, which we need to make a recommendation on. And then I had one other piece of, well, actually, this is new business. And that is, and I'll send this to you guys, to you folks electronically. We issued an RFP for audit services as we are at at the end of the last RFP engagement with Bloom Shapiro. We had 3 respondents. I've summarized it here in this document. For those who are interested, there's some, in case your packet isn't, your bag isn't heavy enough, there is some materials there that show their cost proposals. What you have here is their cost, the cost breakdown for the 3 against the 4 categories of the RFP. And then please note that we had requested that respondents indicate how many audits, municipal audits, they perform for municipalities in excess of 20,000 residents, which is the category we fall into. Page 2 is our estimation on it, and page 3 is the hourly rates. In consultation with Pam Millman, I have reached out to Bloom Shapiro. Bloom Shapiro's been our auditor for a number of years. In fact, they are in the middle of the audit, or just about done with the audit. Almost done with the audit. And, you know, I'll tip my hand. I'm very comfortable with Bloom Shapiro, have been for a long time. Bloom Shapiro, and again, this is after discussions with town council. We went back to Bloom Shapiro and see if they would match the difference between themselves and the low bidder. I think the difference in the first year was $200, and then there was about a $1,600 difference in year 5. We have the luxury of deciding how many years of this we want to accept. We could accept the 1 year, we could accept 2, we could accept 5, or, you know, and then move forward with that. One thing that needs to be noted is that we are not signing a 5-year agreement with them. These are year over year. Each fiscal year, 90 days prior to the end of the fiscal year, this board has to approve the auditor for the current fiscal year they're in. So this would apply for the audit for the 2016-2017 budget. So we'll talk about this a little bit. I want to get Mary Jane's input next week as well. All right, so we'll wrap that into next Friday's get-together. Anybody else with new business?
No.
Public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum?
Crowd for a change.
We do. We have a much better crowd than we normally get.
He's on tight.
God bless you. No games on Thursday night. MJ. It is nice to see people out at this meeting. Input is always appreciated by this board. And to that end, there are a couple of dates that those in the viewing audience might be interested in, as well as right here. On Tuesday, March 7th, the Board of Finance will hold its annual public hearing on these budget estimates. The process will be, you'll see the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen will give another presentation. And we'll talk about, hopefully we'll have a little more information from the state. We maybe talk about some of those developments. But the public gets an opportunity to ask specific questions about the budgets. And then they also get the opportunity to weigh in pros and cons, support or, support for or against the budget. It's an opportunity for the residents, the voters to come and let us know what you're feeling. On Thursday, March 9th, the Board of Finance holds its first of 2 scheduled workshops where we deliberate. We ask questions, more in-depth questions of the Board of Selectmen, Board of Education, although I think we've asked and have had answered a significant number of those questions over the past couple of months. We also have a second workshop scheduled for March 13th. In the event that we do not come up with a budget on March 9th. Both of those meetings have public forum where people can come and express their opinions about the budgets that have been presented, both at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. So we encourage and welcome input. Beyond that, the annual referendum will be on April 18th, 2017.
Both those meetings are at 7
Both of those meetings are at 7:30
7:30.
here at the community center. Right? Actually, all three of those meetings are here at the community center, in the large room downstairs. Anybody else? No business? No? Hearing none? With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? No?
Not on that one.
All right.